Welcome back everyone to another of our video contributions for COBB tuning. Today we will be installing COBB's SF intake system on our Gen 2 MAZDASPEED3. Easy enough to install using simple hand tools in just a matter of minutes. Enjoy the increased snarl from your engine and hear the turbo spool more clearly with the addition of the COBB tuning SF intake system. Well, let's get started. The tools needed for COBB's SF intake are as follows. You will need a 3/8 ratchet, a 10mm socket, a 6-inch extension, a 10mm wrench, both a flathead and Phillips head screwdriver, a 3mm Allen wrench or a screwdriver with a 3mm Allen bit, and lockjaw pliers. Inside of the box, we will find COBB's silicone elbow, COBB's MAF housing, both a 2.5-inch and 3-inch hose clamp, the mounting bracket, your restored hardware, the air filter with clamp, the performance air filter cleaning instructions, and a thank you card with the web address for their installation instructions. We will start by removing the two 10mm bolts holding on the intercooler shroud. Then remove the intercooler shroud from the car. Using a Phillips head screwdriver, remove the two Phillips head screws holding the MAF sensor on. Then remove the MAF sensor. Then loosen the clamp holding the intake elbow onto the MAF housing using a 10mm socket. Then unsnap the two clips holding on the upper airbox lid. Using a 10mm socket, remove the two bolts holding on the airbox bracket. Then remove the bracket from the vehicle. We can now remove the upper airbox portion from the car. Lift away on the upper and lower fresh air duct clips to remove it from the vehicle. We can now remove the lower portion of the airbox from the vehicle. We will now loosen the clamp holding the intake elbow onto the turbo inlet pipe. Depress the blue clips on either side of the vent tube to remove it from the intake elbow. We can now remove the intake elbow from the vehicle. Using a pair of lockjaw pliers, squeeze the clamp on the intake elbow to remove the vent tube. Place the clamp on the new intake elbow and position the vent tube into the new intake elbow. Release the clamp. We can now position the COBB intake elbow into the vehicle by placing it onto the turbo inlet pipe. We can now retighten the clamp holding the intake elbow onto the turbo inlet pipe. Remove the two 10mm nuts in front of the battery box. We can now assemble the mounting bracket for the mass airflow housing unit. We will start with a rubber isolator, followed by a flat washer, then a lock washer, and finally a nut. We will repeat this process for the other side as well. Using a rubber isolator, a flat washer, a lock washer, and finally a nut. We will now attach the bracket to the mass airflow housing unit. We will secure this by using the same process that we had on the bracket, by using a flat washer, a lock washer, and finally a nut. We will then repeat this process for the other side. Using a 10mm socket, we will then snug up all 4 nuts to snug. Go ahead and set your clamp already on the intake elbow. We will then take the mass airflow housing unit and install it into the vehicle, starting with the 2 studs on the bottom, which can be tricky to get to, so make sure we get those on first. Then take the mass airflow housing unit and push it into the intake elbow until it is fully secure. We can now reattach the vent tube hose. We can now tighten the clamp on the mass airflow housing unit. We will now use the two previously removed 10mm nuts to attach and secure the mounting bracket to the vehicle. We will now reattach the mass airflow sensor to the mass airflow sensor housing with a 3mm Allen bit. We can now place the COBB filter onto the housing unit and tighten the clamp to snug. All aftermarket intakes for MAZDASPEEDs require tuning in order to ensure the map sensor reads properly and the engine operates within safe parameters. COBB Tuning has you covered with off-the-shelf maps for the access port, making it as easy as install, flash, and go. Head over to the MAZDASPEED3 access port map database to view the full selection of SF intake maps for your vehicle. Thank you for watching another of our video contributions for COBB Tuning, and stay tuned as the weeks go by as we dive even deeper into the possibilities with your MAZDASPEED3 thanks to COBB Tuning.